The sound of metal shrieking against asphalt was louder than thunder. It was 7:42 p.m. when Jake Turner skidded his old battered pickup to the side of the road. Gravel spitting beneath worn tires. The rain was blinding, flooding the narrow highway like a bursting dam. And then he saw it. A luxury black SUV crumpled into a tree. Smoke curling from the hood like a warning. He didn't think. He just ran. "Hey, can you hear me?" Jake shouted as he reached the shattered driver's window. Broken glass crunching under his boots. Inside, a woman's face was smeared with blood. Her arms limp, body slumped against the airbag. Her eyes fluttered open, dazed. "Don't move. Don't try to talk," Jake said, yanking open the mangled door with a groan of metal. The stench of burning oil hit him hard, but he didn't let go. "You're going to be fine. I got you." The rain poured harder. Lightning cracked above. His clothes were soaked. His palms bled, but he reached in, unbuckled her seat belt, and gently pulled her out, shielding her head like she was glass. She mumbled something, but the words were faint. Jake laid her gently on the grass, checked her pulse, and kept talking to her, kept holding her hand. "You stay with me. I know you're scared, but I've got you now. I swear it," he whispered. The paramedics arrived 10 minutes later, but it felt like hours. When they loaded her into the ambulance, the woman grabbed his wrist and barely managed a word. "Thank you." Then she was gone. Jake didn't know her name, didn't ask for a reward. He just returned to his beat-up truck, sat behind the wheel in silence, and exhaled for the first time. He didn't even notice his son, Caleb, calling him from the passenger seat with wide, anxious eyes. "Dad, you're bleeding." Jake looked down. His knuckles were torn raw. "It's okay," he whispered. "We helped her. That's what matters." What he didn't know was the woman he saved was Victoria Renault, one of the wealthiest tech billionaires on the East Coast. And in exactly 48 hours, the town of Elbrook was going to learn her name and his. But tonight, Jake was just a tired, broke single dad who fixed lawnmowers for a living and hadn't even paid this month's rent. By the time Monday morning rolled around, Jake's arms were still sore from ripping open that car door. He didn't complain, though. He was too busy making Caleb's lunch. A peanut butter sandwich and half a bruised apple. "Dad," Caleb asked softly from the kitchen table. "Is that lady going to be okay?" Jake paused, hands trembling slightly over the sandwich. "I hope so, bud." She was breathing. That's a good sign. He didn't tell Caleb about the dreams he had the night before. How he kept seeing her bloodied face, how it felt holding her hand in the rain. He'd seen people give up before. That woman hadn't, and neither would he. He dropped Caleb at school, then headed to the back of the town hardware store, where he worked part-time fixing generators, air conditioners, and anything people couldn't afford to replace. The store owner, Hank, was already waiting with a scowl. "You're late," Hank barked. Jake gave a tired nod. "Car trouble again." Hank rolled his eyes one more time. "And I'm docking your pay." Jake bit his tongue. He needed the money for Caleb's shoes, for rent, for gas. He swallowed his pride like he always did, but halfway through fixing a lawnmower's fuel line. His phone buzzed. Unknown caller. He almost didn't pick up. Almost. "Mr. Turner." A smooth female voice came through. "This is Harper Owens. I work with Victoria Renault. She's asked to see you." Jake wiped the sweat off his brow. "I'm sorry." "Who?" "Ms. Renault. The woman you pulled from the crash 2 nights ago." His heart dropped. "She's awake?" he asked, stunned. "She is. And she'd like to meet you today. At the Fairmont Hotel in Brookhaven. Noon. Sharp." Jake glanced down at his oil-stained shirt. His fingers were caked in grease. "I don't own a suit," he mumbled half to himself. "That won't be necessary, Mr. Turner," the woman said warmly. "She just wants to say thank you. Please come." He hung up, stunned, heartbeat pounding. Back at home, he changed into the cleanest shirt he owned, still too loose on his lean frame, and dropped Caleb off with his elderly neighbor, Miss Lorraine, who always smiled too much but never asked questions. And when Jake walked into the Fairmont lobby at 12:03, every head turned. He didn't belong here, and he knew it until Harper Owens greeted him with a smile and led him past the marble columns, past the eyes of judgment, up the elevator, room 1704. He stepped inside and stopped cold. There she was, Victoria Renault, propped up in bed, arm in a sling, bruises fading, but her eyes sharp, studying him. "You're really him," she whispered. "You saved my life." Jake gave a small awkward shrug. "You don't owe me anything." But Victoria smiled faintly. "That's where you're wrong." She turned to her assistant. Harper shone the file. Harper handed Jake a thick envelope. He opened it. His hands trembled as he stared at the contents. Deed documents. A check. Too many zeros to count. What? What is this? He stammered. "It's a start," Victoria said. "I've looked into you, Jake. Single father, hard-working, honest. This town forgot about you. I haven't. Let's just say I don't believe in random." Jake blinked. "I'm not some charity case." "You're not," she said. "You're the reason I'm alive. And I'm about to give this town something it hasn't had in decades. Hope." Jay couldn't speak. But outside in the quiet town of Elbrook, the winds of change had already begun to blow, and none of them had any idea what was coming. By Thursday morning, the town of Elbrook had never buzzed louder. Rumors spread like wildfire. The Fairmont Hotel staff had seen Jake walk out of that penthouse suite, looking like he'd been struck by lightning. He didn't say much, but the envelope he clutched in his hand, thick, heavy, life-altering, and by afternoon, it was no longer a rumor. The Elbrook Gazette printed a bold headline. Billionaire Victoria Renault invests in Elbrook. Local mechanic at center of deal. Jake couldn't even go into the diner without heads turning. He tried to keep his head down, but a voice rang out from a booth near the window. "Turner, you trying to be famous now, huh?" barked Jerry Lawson, the town's self-declared king, owner of 3 apartment blocks and the only car dealership for miles. Jake paused. "Just grabbing a coffee, Jerry. You think you're hot stuff now 'cause you pulled someone from car?" Big whoop. "We've all done good things." Jake didn't reply, but the waitress, Ellen, a widow in her 50s with tired eyes and a fierce heart, stepped in. "Yeah, when's the last time you risked your life in a storm for someone, Jerry?" He scoffed. "Whatever, she'll forget about him in a week." But she didn't. That afternoon, construction trucks arrived. 2 of them, unmarked, glossy white. By sundown, Victoria Renault herself, still in a sling but dressed in black slacks and heels, stood on the front steps of the old community center. The place had been boarded up for a decade. Jake stood beside her, stunned. She faced the crowd that had gathered, curious, skeptical, whispering. "I was told this town used to be full of life," she began. "But something changed. People got tired. Hope left. Well, I'm here to bring it back." She nodded to her assistant. Harper stepped forward and handed the mayor a folder. "This," Victoria continued, "is a proposal, a real one. I'm restoring this center. I'm building a technology incubator on the East Lot. I'm creating jobs, scholarships, and none of it happens without the men standing next to me." Jake stared at the cracked pavement, ears burning. "I don't want anything named after me," he mumbled. But Victoria turned to him. "You already gave this town your name the night you didn't walk away." And just like that, the dynamic shifted. The same men who used to call him Scrap Boy now shook his hand. The same mothers who avoided him at PDA meetings now asked how he was. And the kids who whispered about Caleb's worn shoes. They waved when they saw them at the store. But not everyone was pleased, especially Jerry Lawson. That night, he stormed into the mayor's office. "You can't just let her roll in and buy everything," he yelled. Mayor Fletch frowned. "She's not buying. She's investing. And unless you're offering scholarships and job training, I suggest you sit down." Jerry's lips curled. "You think Jake Turner's some saint? He's trash with a toolbox. This town will ride if you put him on a pedestal." But the mayor simply replied, "Funny. He's already done more for this town in 3 days than you have in 30 years. Outside, Jake sat on the edge of his truck, watching Caleb run around with other kids. Laughter echoing through the dusk air. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes because deep down he felt it. Something was coming and not everyone wanted him to succeed. It was a quiet Friday morning when Jake heard the knock. Not a friendly knock. Not the kind Miss Lorraine gave when she brought over leftover pie. No, this was a cold, deliberate knock, a warning disguised as courtesy. Jake opened the door, still groggy from a late night fixing the heater in the trailer. Because kindness didn't mean luxury. Not yet. Standing there was Jerry Lawson. Sunglasses, slick jacket, chewing on a toothpick like he owned the world. "We need to talk," Jerry said. Jake exhaled slowly. "You came all the way out here for that. Don't get cocky, Turner. You and I both know you're not cut out for this game. You're a grease monkey. You fix junk. You don't sit on investment boards." Jake leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. "You got something to say it." Jerry stepped closer, voice dropping. "I know what you're doing. This whole partnership with Victoria, it's a PR stunt. She'll dump this town in 6 months. And you'll be left holding the scraps." Jake shook his head. "That woman nearly died here. She saw this town the way I see it. Tired, broken, but still breathing. And we're going to fix it." Jerry's jaw tanked. "You think you're some kind of hero?" Jake didn't flinch. "No, I'm a father and I want my son to grow up in a place where good people don't get stepped on." "Then you're dumber than I thought," Jerry muttered. He turned to leave but paused just long enough to twist the knife. "Watch your back, Turner. Elm doesn't belong to people like you. It belongs to people who built it. People like me." Jake shut the door without replying, but the words sat in his chest like a stone. That afternoon, Jake was called to a town council meeting, one Victoria had scheduled, but surprisingly didn't attend in person. He arrived to a tense room. Victoria's assistant, Harper, was already there, flanked by architects and business analysts. The mayor looked hopeful. The townspeople curious, but then came the bombshell. "We've discovered that the East Lot, where the tech center is scheduled to be built, is under private lease," Harper said, voice steady. Murmurs echoed across the room. "Lease to who?" the mayor asked. Harper's expression hardened. "Lawson Properties effective as of this morning." Gasps, whispers. Jake felt a chill crawl up his spine. Jerry had struck first. Later that night, Jake stood alone outside the dark shell of the old community center. He stared out toward the East Lot, now barricaded with temporary fencing Jerry had installed. He didn't hear the soft footsteps behind him until a voice whispered, "You okay?" Victoria Renault stood there, leaning lightly on a cane, still pale but alert, dressed in a long coat. No press, no cameras, just her. Jake chuckled bitterly. "Your plan's falling apart." "No," she said calmly. "It's evolving." Jake looked at her. "You really believe in all this?" Victoria stepped forward and placed a hand on his arm. "When I was trapped in that SUV, there was a moment I thought, this is it. And then I felt a hand on mine. You. And the world didn't end." He said, "Nothing. I've built empires, Jake. But they're nothing without people. I've met billionaires with empty hearts. You were willing to walk away without asking for a dime." Jake glanced at the lot again. "Jerry's not going to stop. He wants this town to stay scared. Then we make them brave." She replied, "Ow." She smiled by showing them by building something bigger than what he can block. "And you're going to help me do it." By Sunday, the plans had changed. Victoria publicly announced the acquisition of the old cotton mill on the west side, 4 times the size of the East Lot, untouched for decades. The new plan, a full community campus, trade workshops, tech hubs, child care services, and free vocational training for veterans and single parents. And the kicker, it would be named the Caleb Center after Jake's son. Jay tried to protest, but Victoria silenced him with one look. "You gave me my life. I'm giving yours a legacy, but kindness always comes with resistance. That night, Jake's truck was vandalized. Windows smashed. Fraud spray painted across the hood. Jake stood in the rain, fist clenched, jaw tight, but said nothing until Caleb ran outside barefoot, shivering. "Dad, who did this?" Jake crouched beside him, voice gentle but firm. "Someone who's scared, but we're not." And when Miss Lorraine brought hot cocoa an hour later, wrapped in an old quilt, eyes misty, Jake knew he wasn't alone. Not anymore. The following Friday began like any other. Jake made pancakes that stuck to the pan. Caleb forgot his backpack and Miss Lorraine waved from across the road like she always did, holding her little dog in one arm and an umbrella in the other. But by noon, Elbrook would never be the same. The Caleb Center was opening its doors. Hundreds gathered outside the newly restored brick and glass campus on the west side of town. There were food trucks, a live band, handmade signs from local kids, reporters lined the streets, and standing on the freshly built stage beneath the banner for the people of Elbrook, Jake Turner held a microphone with trembling fingers. "I'm not used to speeches," he began, his voice low and rough from emotion. "I'm just a mechanic, a dad. But a few weeks ago, I pulled a stranger out of a burning car. I didn't do it to be a hero. I did it because it was the right thing to do." He paused, eyes scanning the crowd. "And you know what? This town used to be like that, too. We looked out for each other. We didn't wait for billionaires or TV crews. We just helped. Somewhere along the way, we forgot that the silence was thick, heavy, real. But I didn't save just one life that night." Jay continued, "Because that woman, Victoria, turned around and saved us. She saw what I see. A town full of good people who just needed a chance." He looked down at Caleb in the front row, beaming, "I'm not special. I'm not rich. I'm not brilliant. But I promise you this. I will fight for every person in this town who's ever felt invisible because we are not broken. We are not done. And if anyone out there thinks this town still belongs to men like Jerry Lawson," Jake turned slowly, eyes locking on at Jerry, arms crossed, bitter, standing near the back of the crowd. "Then they should look around." Hundreds of people, young and old, stood up. Applause thundered. Cheering erupted. Jerry's face fell. What followed over the next few weeks was nothing short of revolutionary. The Caleb Center's job training programs enrolled over 300 residents in the first month. Scholarships flowed in for local youth. Victoria's Foundation opened a fund for single parents needing emergency aid. Small businesses were given microloans. Elbrook's forgotten west side lit up with life. And Jake, he didn't take a salary. Instead, he showed up every morning at 6 a.m. sharp, wiping down tables, fixing broken pipes, talking to anyone who felt unheard. When asked why, he simply said, "Because I know what it's like to feel small, and I won't let anyone else feel that again." But there was one last moment that shook even Jake. One evening after a long day, he returned home to find a letter on his doorstep. Gold trim, thick parchment, handwritten. It was from Victoria. Inside was a single sentence. "You gave me life. I gave you a spark. Now give it to the world." And beneath it, a deed not just for the Caleb Center, but for the entire West Lot. She had quietly transferred ownership to a community trust. With Jake listed as chairman, tears welled in his eyes as he read it. He looked up at the sky, the stars barely visible through the haze, and whispered, "Thank you." Months passed. Jerry Lawson left town after his empire crumbled. His properties exposed for safety violations. His tenants given free legal aid through a program Jake helped set up. Victoria, she returned occasionally, always without fanfare, always with purpose. Sometimes just to see Jake, sometimes just to sit with Caleb and help with homework. And Jake, he didn't become rich. He didn't need to. He became something better.